Hey, it's Lee for On Your Marks Wrestling, and I'm here with a Smackdown review for May 1st, 2018. Now, I'm doing this review one day late because, again, I've been delayed a little bit. I went to a live event on Monday. I just got caught up on Raw yesterday. I'm working my way back. Now, today, I actually watched 4 wrestling shows, so I am kind of exhausted. I'm going to fight my way through it. I might go through this quickly, and I will get lost a few times. I apologize ahead of time, but let's go. So Paige opens up by telling the crowd that Shane McMahon won't be there, reminding them that he was thrown through an announcer table by Braun Strowman at the Greatest Royal Rumble. And then she also mentions that AJ Styles versus Shinsuke Nakamura will now be a no disqualification, so the low blows are now legal. That's fine, that's a good stipulation. We start with Miz TV. This show is in Montreal, by the way, and Montreal's crowds tend to be notoriously loud. This crowd was not as loud as most, but still. The crowd actually loves The Miz. He reminds them that he took Maurice from them. I thought that was cool. Miz says that Daniel Bryan is banned from Miz TV for no showing last week when he was beaten up by Big Cass, presumably. He reminds Seth Rollins that he's going to win the Intercontinental Championship at Backlash. And then he introduces Jeff Hardy. Miz asks Hardy if Hardy thinks that Miz is the best Intercontinental Champion over Rollins. And Hardy calls him annoying and says if being annoying is what he's best at, then yes, he is the best. But he also says that if he would be better, then he would be champion, and Rollins is currently champion, so he'll leave it at that. Miz says that Hardy disrespected a future Hall of Famer, Randy Orton, and then he says, surprise, Randy Orton's on the show. Orton comes out. Orton says that he and Hardy are actually kind of even. They both kind of walked out on each other's matches, and he doesn't have any grudge against Hardy. Miz tries to get under Orton's skin and to get him angry with Hardy. But Orton's just not biting on it. Then Shelton Benjamin comes out and he says that he deserves a championship opportunity because I believe he beat Orton last week. A brawl ensues and Orton and Hardy stand tall. So then we have a tag team match. It's Hardy and Orton versus Shelton Benjamin and The Miz. They start out with Orton, who gets interfered with from the outside. Hardy has a nice little kind of good guy run. He goes for the Swanton Bomb, but Miz elbows him down, and I'm not sure what I wrote here. I wrote a word. Oh yeah, Shelton. I wrote Shelton. I don't know why. It looked like Sheamus. He lands a running high knee in the corner. It's a cool move. He always kind of runs up to the second rope and knees the guy who's on top. Orton drops Miz on the announce table. It's his classic move. It always looks cool. And then he lands a double draping DDT. He RKO's Benjamin, and then there's a Swanton Bomb for the win. And then at the end of the match, instead of celebrating, Orton RKO's Hardy. And that was to be expected, but it was exactly what you wanted. That's fine. Renee Young interviews the Iconics. Carmella isn't there. Peyton does a terrible impression of Renee Young, basically a Minnesota accent without sounding like she's from Minnesota. Again, of course, Billy Kay sells it as if it's the greatest impression of all time. Then the Iconics properly introduce Carmella, who says that she's money. And then she moonwalks across the screen a couple times. It reminded me of an old school promo from the Survivor Series and things like that, where they seem to just kind of let them go loose. I'm talking like early 90s. There's an interview with Daniel Bryan from the Greatest Royal Rumble, so it's kind of a flashback thing, where he says that he wasn't tired, but then we learn that he's not cleared for tonight because there's a risk of infection with his chest, which was all red at the Greatest Royal Rumble. The Bar's backstage and they encounter the New Day. The Bar says that they wanted to be on SmackDown so that they could flatten the New Day like pancakes. And then New Day offer the Bar pancakes who suspect they're poisoned. They throw the pancakes away, and Sheamus ends up challenging Xavier. There's a few other things that are said, but whatever, you get the point. Aiden English is practicing for his song tonight, along with Rusev. Lana shows up and says something is holding Rusev back while English is gone. And then English returns to the room, and it kind of hints that that's what Lana is saying is holding him back. Then we have Big Cass, who comes out, says he's from New York City, says that people say they don't treat people very well, and that's because they're better than them. He says that he's better than Daniel Bryan. The crowd chants, "On s'en calisse," which means we don't give a damn. Bryan looks like Cass says that Bryan looks like the average Joe or the average fan. He says, is that really what you want your champion to look like, or your superstar to look like? He says he's not going to give them a 5-star match at Backlash. He's going to give them a 5-second beatdown. And then he calls out Daniel Bryan. A little person in a Daniel Bryan costume comes out. Cass makes a bunch of short jokes that are not funny. Then he announces that the wrestler is a local. So he says Montreal's own, and he gives his name, and he says, hey, call him for bookings and stuff like that. And he tells him to take a bow, and then he kicks the little person in the head. I don't like the use of little people in storylines at all, usually. I did kind of find it funny when he kicked the guy in the head, so I guess there was that. Renee Young is in the ring. She is joined by AJ Styles. Says that AJ Styles says that he's willing to break the rules too. So he says it's not something that's limited to Shinsuke. Renee says, so you're saying that you won't be apologizing to Shinsuke, who's been asking for an apology for AJ Styles' attack, even though he's low-blowed him a bunch of times. Samoa Joe's music hits. Samoa Joe says that his hatred/anger is distracting him to AJ, and he's saying you have more important things on your plate, like this match where like Samoa Joe's match, where he'll prove that he's better than that Roman Reigns is still a failure. And then he says that after beating Reigns, he's coming after AJ. On his way out, so on Joe's way out, Nakamura's music hits, and he kind of squares up to fight him, and then Nakamura doesn't show up, but then they cut to the ring, and Nakamura has already low-blowed AJ Styles, so he was, again, a step ahead. Nakamura fakes a Kinshasa from behind on AJ Styles. Then he kind of takes a couple steps, goes into the opposite corner, and he actually does hit a proper Kinshasa. And then he grabs the belt and poses with the championship belt. Nakamura's facial expressions in this were perfect. It was good stuff. We go backstage. Becky is very upset that she cost Asuka a win last week. Asuka says forget about last week, it's not a big deal. Charlotte is focused on Carmella, and Asuka references that they're essentially like the WWE's Avengers. So she basically gives their nicknames: Straight Fire, Empress of Tomorrow, and Queen. I don't even remember what she is, but whatever. So then we get the match between Sheamus and Xavier Woods. Woods hits a tope con hilo. It's kind of his go-to big move, and it always looks good. Cesaro tries to sell Xavier pancakes as a distraction, so he has them in his jacket. It's stupid. Sheamus knees Woods. He throws Woods into the bottom rope at one point, kind of reminiscent of Enzo Amore throwing himself into a rope and knocking himself out. At one point, Sheamus Woods kind of sidesteps Sheamus, and he gets his shoulder into the ring post, which gives him a little bit of an advantage. Woods lands a really cool leg drop, where he basically goes into the corner, jumps off the second rope, essentially does kind of like a Vader bomb, but twists himself around and does a leg drop. It's cool. Woods is going for a coast-to-coast like move. I can't say it was coast-to-coast for sure, but he's going for it. But Cesaro jumps onto the apron. There's some shenanigans outside, and Woods eventually manages to roll up Sheamus for the win. Then we see Absolution teasing Becky last week. So it's, again, a flashback kind of promo thing. They're teasing Becky for costing Asuka the win, and Becky's kind of threatening them. Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville are backstage with Paige, and they think that Paige is going to pick one of them to be in a title match. She then informs Mandy that no, she's actually facing Becky Lynch in a singles match next week. Rose and DeVille ask for special treatment because they're Absolution, and then Paige basically informs them that Absolution is dead. So maybe they're going to start acting as a different faction, different name. I don't know what's going to happen with that, but they're separating Paige from being a heel. It is very late. I'm sorry. Then we have another little kind of cell phone promo of Zelina Vega and Cien Almas. They basically say, you know, a lot of people are asking where he is, and she said he's going to show up when he wants to show up, which is fine, but I would really like to see him in Sanity as soon as possible. Then we get a match between Charlotte, Becky, and Asuka versus the Iconics and Carmella. This is a fairly long match, so I'll have a lot of notes. Billy slaps Asuka and does a great job of selling the fact that she knows she's made a terrible mistake. She reminded me of Job from Arrested Development, if you ever watch that show. Charlotte lands a plancha onto the Iconics. Look good. The Iconics yank Asuka from the apron and beat her down so that she can't take a tag from Becky. But Charlotte does finally get in. She gets her hands on Carmella, which had been kind of a situation they've been trying to set up, but Carmella was always avoiding it. But the Iconics interfere. I wrote K, but it was wrong. It's Peyton Royce lands her spinning back kick for a near fall. Charlotte is beaten down until Asuka tags herself in and runs absolutely wild. We get the everybody gets their big move in kind of spot. And it's culminated with Charlotte hitting her moonsault to the outside onto the two members of the Iconics, I believe. Asuka goes for the Asuka lock, but Royce attempts a roll up off one of those, like, you bounce towards the ropes and you kind of roll yourself over the person. She attempts that, but Asuka kind of reduces the amount of rotation there is, which stops Royce before she gets on top of her, and she puts her in the Asuka lock from that position. It's very cool, and Royce has to tap out. It was a cool ending. Overall, I would say this card was pretty solid. Good in-ring stuff. I would say that the outside of the ring stuff was pretty good as well. It just didn't feel quite as tight as the Raw show, which is rare that you get to say that about SmackDown because it's a shorter show. But I thought that Raw, they really kind of maximized what they were doing, whereas SmackDown was just a little bit off. I would say I'm still going to give it a 7.5 out of 10. Solid score. Nothing to complain about that. All right, thanks for watching.